all of you magnificent beings out there in the radio world, so to speak. This is Reverend Irma Forward. We welcome you to Wake Up Awareness. My spiritual companion on this journey this morning is the wonderful Jean Kennedy, religious science practitioner. She knows the truth, practices the truth. We have a saying in New Thought that is that we have to walk our talk, and she genuinely walks her talk. And for that, I am so grateful that she's here to support us this morning. And once again, we're welcoming you to your wonderful magnificence, knowing that you are divine, knowing that you are a child of the universe, that you are magnificently expressing God, doing the work that God does through you. So we give thanks for that this morning. And this morning I will turn this over right now to our wonderful Jean Kennedy, and she will anchor us in affirmative prayer, providing us with an evocation or invocation, whatever your choice would be. And then we'll have a musical inspiration. Jean will also let us know what the purpose of us being here together each Sunday morning is. Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Reverend Irma.
And you were on vacation last week.
It was a wonderful week, a wonderful vacation. We had so much fun. We stayed longer than we thought.
Okay, but you're back with us this morning?
I'm back.
All right.
And this morning, thank you so much for joining us, because this is a passion dear to our hearts. The show, Wake Up Awareness, is sponsored by the Center for Spiritual Enrichment as a living memorial and tribute to our founder, Reverend Sue Constantinidis. And what we decided to honor her was to spread the New Thought message and let people know about New Thought. And basically our teachings are in the form of religious science and unity, but not to be limited to those. That to accept that the God presence lives within us, in each and every one of us, and the kingdom of heaven is here within us. And, it's something that I've been involved in for many, many years as a practitioner. And I know Reverend Irma, she has been many years.
Many years. All right.
And we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of their divine magnificence.
Yes.
Through the practice of New Thought.
Yes.
So please join me today as I recognize and accept for each one of us that God is in all and as all. We have come together in love, seeking the true path of our beliefs, and recognize our spiritual home. We are guided by divine wisdom in our lesson today, so everyone listening will benefit and feel their magnificence with the oneness that we call God. We know that the truth of perfection includes ourselves, our engineer, our listeners, our local community, and the world. We know and accept that our words and our thoughts have power, and we recognize that power is the God source within each one of us. And we declare these words to be the truth here and now, and say, thank you, God, and so it is.
And so it perfectly is. Our musical inspiration this morning is How Can I Keep From Singing by Enya.
My life goes on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off 'cause in the night it giveth, no storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from when tyrants tremble in their fear and hear their dead knell ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? In prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from
So, in spite of everything that may happen to us as a challenge or whatever obstacles we may face, we have to simply know that there is a power, that there is a presence that we call God, and that this energy moves and lives and has its being in us. And that being the case, how can we keep from singing? How can we keep from singing? Just a very beautiful song, and we're grateful for it. Today, our lesson is going to be about healing all the broken places that we perceive that we have in our lives. And we're just simply giving thanks for all of that. We want to be able to know without exception that we have worked and that all things have worked and are continuing to work for our highest and best good. And so we want to honor it all. We want to accept it into every season of our life. All of our lives have seasons to it, and we'll talk about that later, some Sunday in the future. But we want to know that we are simply living in extraordinary times right now. And there's a call to be aware of everything that is around us. We want to be aware of the planet, as well as social attitudes, and as well as family, both our social families and our biological families. And yet, we find that we must turn within and handle any interior attitudes that have manifest as our life. We must look within to the so-called broken places that need to be healed. We have to ask the question, and we have to question everything. And then when we question everything and when we ask the question, we may have a revelation that may not be to our liking, because that revelation may reveal that there is a certain amount of social responsibility, that is personal responsibility, that we have to take. We don't always want to do that. So Jane, I know that you're a very, very wise person, And we have a lot of broken places that may need to be healed. And so the question is, what does Ernest Holmes, in his seminal book, The Science of Mind, what did he say about this? What did he infer about our broken places?
He said several things.
Okay.
And when we enter this spirit and bear our souls to its great light, we lose our troubles and are healed.
Okay.
The confession of sins or mistakes helps us to let go of troubles and to feel that the universe holds nothing against us.
Okay.
And that's from the Science of Mind textbook, page 501.
Okay.
He also continues to go, the confession of mistakes, even in our hearts, condemn us. We know that the spirit which gives the heart is greater than its gift.
Okay.
And that's from the Science of Mind textbook, page 503.
Okay.
And then he goes on that now we are the sons of God. An evolved soul judges no one, condemns no one, but realizes that all are on the road of experience, seeking the same goal, and that each must ultimately find their home in heaven. And that's from the Science of Mind textbook, page 434. Judge not that ye be judged.
Whoa. Okay. And so that reminds me of an old adage that we have, and it says if you can't really judge a person until you walk at least a mile in their moccasin or something similar to that. And so we don't want to judge someone because we don't know what they're going through, that they have broken places that need to be healed. And they may even be working on them, causing a little bit of consternation to their friends, saying, okay, what's going on here? And not necessarily knowing that, hey, this person, this individual is working to clear out all of the things that seem discordant in his life, in his emotions, in his psyche, so to speak. So he wants to let those go so that he can live a more fulfilled life. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this right now. So what we find is that brokenness itself is not a destination. So, Jean, what happens is we find that when we have these broken places in our personality and in our soul even, that's not the destination, to be broken all the time. And we know that we can recover from that. Brokenness itself is the inevitable enveloping energy that slaps at the face and pounds at the gut to remind us that we are vessels of feelings. But what do we do with those feelings? With the seemingly irreparable mess that we create for ourselves because we haven't acknowledged these broken feelings. So do we barricade ourselves from their raw presence of these feelings? Or do we learn to breathe with them and through them? All the while learning that by allowing them the space to flow through us, we go from someone who is broken to someone who is broken wide open. And when you're broken wide open, certain things start to happen.
Reverend Irma, the author Vance Havner, so eloquently stated, God uses broken things. It takes broken soil to produce a crop, broken clouds to give rain,
Okay.
broken grain to give bread, broken bread to give strength. It is the broken alabaster box that gives forth perfume.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it seems as though he had a good handle on that. I can remember many, many years ago, obviously, that I would watch a gentleman plowing his field, and he was breaking loose the soil so that he could plant seeds that would produce a crop of something, whatever it was. You know, it could have been a crop of tomatoes, or it could have been corn, or whatever. But it actually, he actually had to go through and plow and break up the soil in order to be able to plant the seeds successfully. And we all have looked up in the sky and saw big dark clouds and say, okay, that's a rain cloud up there, and wait for it to break loose, so to speak, and provide us with what we in Southern California might want to say is healing rain right now, and it provides us with that. And then it takes breaking the wheat loose to give us bread, and to give us the grain to make the bread. So it's all of that. And then we actually, once the bread is baked, and there's nothing like the smell of fresh baked bread, and you break it, you bite through it, and it gives you the strength and the energy to move through another day. So being broken open revives us. It creates within us a spaciousness that did not exist before. The poet Rumi said, "The wound is the place where light enters you." Our brokenness is a place where this leading light can penetrate through us and shine itself upon all the strengths, all the talents and possibilities that we had forgotten were within us. And so sometimes we forget that we are magnificent beings and that there's so much potential within us until something happens to break us wide open for the experience of the doing and accepting the fact that we are truly magnificent and are able to move through all of our perceived ideas about lack and limitation. We're able to move through that. Many years ago, I was moved by the radical teachings of Panache Desai. He's a best-selling author and guest. He's been a guest on Oprah's Super Soul television series. And what he would do is listen to the attendees, the people that were attending the television show. He would listen to their stories and discern their universal victim narrative, and then ask them to declare out loud, "I am a victim." Now, everyone would balk at that, and they resist it. And many would regurgitate the familiar teaching point that what you put after the words "I am" becomes your reality. And he actually countered back by saying, and I'm paraphrasing this, he said, nobody's denying that. However, what you're telling all of us is how unfair, how unmanageable, how difficult your life has been up until this point. He says, I'm asking you to own your feelings around all of that so that we can move on to the other polarity of the I am that you have been instructed to affirm. Now, that's a very powerful experience, you see, because we do say, you know, I'm tired. And once you say that, you become even more exhausted, you know, and you want to just sit back and revel in being tired and being the victim of your tiredness. But we want to also understand that that's just a feeling. It's just an emotion for the moment, and that we can move through it and say something different. So it was my understanding, however, that he was wanting the audience to understand that what we don't own owns us. Now, so that means if we don't own the fact that we have something broken, something going on in our world, something uncomfortable that we're dealing with, a relationship perhaps that's broken, and it's causing you a lot of distress, it's causing you to stay up at night and not sleep well because you're not moving through the process of saying, or rather examining what it is that's really causing the distress in the relationship. So we don't want it to own us. We want to own it. We want to own it by acknowledging it and saying, okay, this is what it is, and I'm going to handle this. We don't always do that because sometimes we don't know how. We push things to the back, on the back burner, so to speak, so that we don't have to handle it at the moment. And all it does is fester, and it keeps itself there so that you can't really move ahead and do anything exceptional with your life. So far too often, we miss teaching this vital beginning step on the pathway of assisting others in changing their ideas about the things that are creating this broken space in their world. Now, When we explore the successful steps of every recovery program, there is the fourth and fifth step of creating a moral inventory and speaking it out loud to an impartial witness. It's kind of like when you go to church and you have to confess your sins, so to speak, or, confess that, hey, I made a big mistake here, big faux pas. And so an example of that would be, say, for example, I'm a liar, I'm a victim, I'm a hypocrite. Without this uncovering of condemnation within our subjective world, we are simply placing band-aids over ancient subconscious wounds rather than inviting the wound to the light. And we want to move back to the quotes that Ernest Holmes shared with us in the beginning. What was one of those quotes, Jean, that we can look at and see what Holmes had to say about that? Yes, just one of those would be good.
The confession of mistakes. Even in our hearts condemn us, even if our hearts condemn us, we know that the Spirit which gives the heart is greater than its gift.
Okay. All right. So we want to be able to let it go through the confession, so to speak, through the acknowledgement that, hey, I've made a big mistake and I've been a hypocrite about something. There was this little girl, and I wouldn't say a little girl because she was mature, and she was also very blind, and she hated herself because she was blind. She hated everyone except her loving boyfriend. He was always there for her. She said that if she could only see the world, she would marry him. And that's kind of like making a handshake with God, so to speak, saying, okay, God, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you, and you shake on it. But anyway, she said that if she could only see the world, she would marry him. One day, someone donated a pair of eyes to her, and then she could see everything, including her boyfriend. Her boyfriend asked her, now that you can see the world, will you marry me? The girl was shocked when she saw that her boyfriend was blind too. Hating her former blindness, she refused to marry him. Her boyfriend walked away devastated. And then months later, she received correspondence in the form of a letter. And it said, just take care of my eye, dear. We are often behaving like this girl in the story. And the universe acts like a boyfriend, giving to us unconditionally in spite of our frequent rejection of self and big self. And big self being God. As we program ourselves, or rather reprogram ourselves to love the totality of all that we are, and that means loving our blindness, loving our shortcomings, and loving any failings that we have, all that we are will finally begin to feel the love that is self-existent. So, Jane, there is a call to action here. And what would that be as evidenced by Rumi's poem?
Rumi's poem, The Guest House, says it all.
Okay.
This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be cleaning you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And that's by Rumi. and the translation was by Coleman Barks.
Okay. Okay, so what we find here in this poem is something very powerful and something very profound. Because you see, we want to be able to welcome the broken places, because the broken places are experiences that will allow us to become stronger, because we will have worked through them by some means and by the support of Spirit, by the support of God itself. And so we want to be able to acknowledge that even if, as it says here in the poem, even if a group of sorrowful events knock on your door and come in and try to sweep your house empty of everything that's there, you want to always treat the guests honorably. That means that you want to look at what appears to be a sorrowful experience and acknowledge this may or may not be sorrowful, but I'm going to handle it. And you do handle it with the grace of God. You handle things. And sometimes the sorrow can be in the form of someone passing away that is very near and dear to you. But even in the midst of your grief, you become stronger because of it. And you want to just basically give thanks for all that is happening. And it says here in the poem once again that each guest, so to speak, and this means the broken places, this means all the positive events that are in your experience of life, they're there to help you receive something wonderful and something new that would help you to be more than you think that you could be. And you want to always look at what appears to be shame and malice, accept what could be a shameful experience and figure out how to turn it around for your higher good, knowing that this experience itself is not there forever, that it needs to move on to make somebody else stronger. That kind of sounds kind of crazy, but I believe that that's what actually happens sometimes, that these things happen. So let's summarize this in just a little bit. What does the broken self look like? What does that look like? These are patterns of feeling, they're patterns of thought and behavior, and they play themselves out. How do they play themselves out? So what they can say is, I feel less than others. I feel small, meek, and powerless. Now, quite often when we say that we feel less than others, this will take the form of, say, children in school not doing their best because someone else is maybe drawing a picture much better than they are able to draw. And so they are feeling less than and not as powerful as they could be. Their artistic talents are not as defined as someone else's talents are. But they forget, I have another talent, that I can do. I'm a better speller, perhaps, than the artist is. And so there's all kind of things that will come up and create a broken experience for us, but then we want to acknowledge what it is that gives us power at the time. Another example could be that my posture is often small. My shoulders are round and I slump and I cave in on myself like a turtle. Do you know anything about that, Jean? Your posture being small, you think that what happens is when you're feeling broken, you do feel a shortness of posture, I believe, and you do kind of slump over and cave in on yourself just a little bit. And that's a sign of depression as well. And so we want to know that we don't have to feel that way. And then again, we doubt our abilities and our sense of self or who I am, and you don't trust yourself. And again, this is a part of what the broken self can experience. Not trusting yourself because you've made mistakes in the past, but mistakes are just there for you to experience and for you to move on through that particular experience. We have the idea that because I'm shamed, I can't do anything great and wonderful, and all of that is so untrue. You are still able to do what it is that you have been sent here to do by the Spirit of the living God, that you've been sent here to do something wonderful. A shameful experience does not negate what God has sent you here to do and sent you here to accomplish. And then, Jean, what does that next bullet point that we have here say about vulnerability?
I feel too vulnerable. Not vulnerable as in real and authentic and open, but vulnerable as in exposed, hurting, or raw.
Okay. And so that just simply means that we are not allowing our authentic self to express. And that's when you feel vulnerable, because somebody else is expressing their authentic self and they're putting their ideas onto you. And you're just sitting there because you have forgotten that you are an authentic being of the Most High God. And we want you to know without a doubt that you are not vulnerable, but that you are authentic, that you are open to yourself. You're open to your own authenticity, and you share it with other people, but you don't push it onto them. And so you release being a vulnerable being. You release being hurt. You release being very raw. And you release this idea that you have been exposed, because you haven't. If there's any idea of being exposed, it's the idea of your authentic self coming to fore and allowing you to be all that you can be, not what someone else expects you to be. And then we say that we doubt our own worth and goodness. What does that mean, that we doubt our own worth? I have to say that we think that we're so unworthy because somebody else has told us that, and usually it comes through as a child, that you're not worth anything, sit down. Children are to be seen and not heard, and you begin to think that you're not worth anything, but you are so worth anything. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You're worth something. And so that something has to be exposed. That something has to come to the forefront through you being who you are authentically. Nothing artificial, just simply who you are from this base of being the authentic being, sharing your gifts, your talents, and allowing your potential to express itself and come forth at all times. And then guess what? You have so much potential that it is just waiting to express itself in and through you. And so we want to feel that. Another thing that, Jean, what is it also that we do to be broken? What does it say there with that next bullet point?
I feel unloved, unworthy, alone, separate,
Okay.
closed off from others, different and deficient.
Okay.
Ooh,
Oh, ouch.
that hurt.
We are so loved. We are so loved. Even sometimes when the people that are around us appear to send us unloving thoughts and unloving vibrations, just know that you are loved. There is someone that loves you. God loves you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. It's just as simple as that. You are absolutely loved. You are a divine being. You are a divine idea in the mind of God that is expressing the promises of God right here and right now. And you are worth it. Sometimes there was a commercial about women saying that they're worth it because of the cosmetics that they use. Well, it doesn't matter what kind of cosmetics you use, you're worth it. All the time, you're worth it. Because you're human, and you are here to express God in all of its glory. And you're never alone. The physical appearance may be that there's no one around you, but there is this Spirit of the living God that lives, moves, and has its perfect being in and through you. You are never alone. You are always upheld in the arms of love. You are always upheld in the idea that God is your source. You are never alone. And you're never separate from God. We have this dualistic idea that God is out there, up there, judging us, and that's not true. God is in and through us, absolutely in and through each one of us, as an idea of itself. expressing in and through you. So we're not separate from the presence and the power that we call God. And when we understand the nature of consciousness, we will know that we are not separate really from each other. The physical presence may not be there, but there is this golden string, this golden thread that binds us one to another, and we are never separate from each other. We're not closed off from each other. We're not that different from each other. We have different gifts and different talents, different ways to express God, but we're not different from each other. We're not deficient either. Sometimes we think that we're deficient, and that idea of deficiency comes because someone has told us that we're unworthy or that we can't accomplish certain things. Again, all of that is so untrue. Hear me out. That is not true. And so we are wonderful, complete, and divine ideas in the mind of God. And so how is it that you think about yourself? When you're feeling broken, when you're feeling alone, when you're feeling unloved, how do you feel? What do you feel is true about yourself? What is that belief about yourself that you have? I invite you to believe in yourself, to believe that you are that magnificent being that God is expressing as you. There is no other way God can express itself except through you and your divine companions in this journey of this thing called life. So we want to know and to understand once again that the truth is that we are representing this power and this presence called God. And how is it that you can relate to your others and to yourself? There is a saying in our New Thought communities, and we say namaste. And that is just an ancient term that means the Christ in me or the God in me sees the Christ in you or the God in you. That is how to relate to each and every individual. Namaste. I see your God presence. I know who you are in the divine scheme of things. You are the power. You are the presence that God is. It is no other way. And so I invite you to move from shame and guilt to caring for yourself in a most loving manner. And it isn't about you. It isn't about what you consider to be yours. It isn't a sense of ownership and therefore a source of shame, but we are windows of possibility. We are divine emissaries of what can be possible for our lives. And our lives can be put back together, can be complete after we have examined all the broken places in our lives, the broken relationships, and knowing that we've made perhaps a contribution to that relationship breaking up, but what is it that I'm learning through this process? What is it that I am learning to perhaps give up about myself that created perhaps an unloving relationship? Just simply know that you are a divine idea in the mind of God, and that love simply comes from God, and that is all that there is. And so we want to hold all these feelings with exquisite kindness. We want to know that which is everything, every part of ourselves, every part of you, every part of me, every part of life most deeply wants to feel complete and to feel whole, to feel wholeness, to feel perfect. I wonder if we all love the world, and by loving the most challenging things that flow through our lives, that we don't love these parts of ourselves. And so I invite you to love yourself. There's a song out there that says, I love myself just the way I am at this moment. And so we want to love ourselves, because if we don't love ourselves, we have to know that we have to love ourselves. That's just it, because who else will love us first? We have to love ourselves first. And then the energy that we put in and that vibration that we put into loving ourselves is reflected out into our community, whether it's close or whether it's near or far. but we will reflect that, and then others will love us perhaps as much as we love ourselves. I'm not talking about that romantic love. I'm talking about the agape love, where we love ourselves and love others unconditionally. So we want to love the world. We want to love the most challenging things that flow through our lives. And if we don't love these parts of ourselves, who will? Who will? And we want to love our most challenging parts. And we want to examine how we can love the challenging parts in other people. We recognize that other people may have broken parts, but what we want to see within them is the Christ consciousness, the consciousness that Jesus the Christ expressed. His love was unconditional, it was compassionate. It was not arbitrary, but it was all fulfilling. And this is what we want to express to each other. So again, we say to each other, I see the Christ in you as the Christ is in me as well. So I greet you, Jean, with namaste. I see the Christ in you, knowing that this power and this presence is an indwelling idea that lives, moves, and has its perfect being in and through you, as well as to the world. It just simply radiates out into expression, into the world. And we love everything about everybody. We know that everybody is facing a challenge, is going through something. And we just allow that something to strengthen them and for them to know exactly who they are in the divine scheme of things, for who they are children of the universe, expressing God unconditionally. And this is our truth this day. And so, Jean, I would invite you now to say a word of affirmative prayer. And we talked a little bit about affirmative prayer last week, how we want to know the truth for certain individuals. And we have a few requests here. And once again, let us look at these requests and go ahead and speak a word of truth about them for us.
As we say our word today, we know the truth of perfection for each person that we speak for. We know that these conditions that they have are not the spiritual truth. We turn away from that and turn to their spiritual truth for each one that we say our word for. For Pam. Pam releases any thoughts or mental attitudes caused by any disease and continues to experience wholeness, wellness, and the light of God's loving, healing, divine power in and through her. And she knows the truth of her perfection, which is to be a healed, well, loving expression of God. And for Jared, we know except for Jared right now, that there's no discourse, there's only harmony, there's only perfection, that he breathes easily in and out, that he has the God essence in and through everything he does and is. And for John, John only knows kindness, wonder, and love. That any thoughts of anger or bitterness are all released because he allows God's light to shine in and through him here and now. For this is the truth of his perfection. And for everyone affected by the fires in California, and for the firefighters, we know and accept for each person that God's love is in, through, and around them, and God's protection is out there guiding the way and keeping the path safe for everyone. And for all these things, and for all these people, and the things that we know spiritually that are their truth, we accept these words and know that it's done. We give thank you, and we say, thank you, God, and so it is.
And so it perfectly is, yes. That is a very powerful statement, Jean. Thank you very much. And we invite you to go to our Facebook page and leave a comment there. The Facebook page is Wake Up Awareness, and leave a comment and any prayer requests that you may have there so that we can address them and we hold them in consciousness for the next 30 days. This past week we lost singing legend Aretha Franklin. She's moved on to a new experience of this thing called life, and we just simply want to acknowledge that her singing brought a legacy unlike any that we've experienced before. And so we acknowledge her this morning because as she sings to us of a bridge over troubled waters, we know that that is in keeping with our topic that we talked about this morning, because spirit is indeed the bridge that will help us to heal the broken places. In other words, it is the bridge over troubled water.
I won't give it up. Why don't you let it be? Still water run deep. Yes, it do. I know that. Oh, yeah. If you only believe.
And so for this, we are very thankful to know that the Christ consciousness, that spirit that we know as God, is always there to comfort us and to provide us with all of our needs, with all of our cares. This spirit is able to dissipate them once we turn to spirit and allow spirit to do its magnificent work in and through us. And so as you're still, please take these words to heart and know that every day from dawn to evening tide, God is and always has been. This one life that is God's life is my life now. It is your life now. It is perfect and dwells within the being of each one of us. One with the power, self-creating itself into our observable world. And we bask in the law of God that always says yes. And so today we allow our broken places to be healed, and we hold ourselves in unconditional loving arms. Everything that is on our path, everything that appears to be broken, is serving us. And as we look into our shadows or our broken pieces, the lesson waiting to be revealed comes forth to strengthen and revitalize us. And we allow this revitalization to take place, and we become transformed. We become new because of these experiences. The broken places become healed, and we step forward into our spiritual magnificence with a glow that is unique to each and every one of us. And for this, we give thanks, and so it perfectly is. Amen.
And so it is. Amen.
And so it is.
Thank you for joining us. See us here next week. Same time, same place.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM,